thank you for tuning in. So in today's video, I'll share some tips about ways to be a successful writer. The first tip that I have on how to be a successful writer is that you should plan time out to write on a daily basis. And that can be as simple as writing for 10 minutes or longer, just giving yourself time to write on a daily basis so you're in the routine of writing and your creative juices continue to flow in regards to writing. Another thing to do to be a successful writer is to have a notepad handy or use your phone's notes. Whenever ideas do pop up, just jot them down in case you want to develop those ideas into a story or something longer a little bit later. Another thing to do to be a successful writer is to think about what's going on in the world around you and how that can inspire your writing, whether it's current events to inspire a nonfiction piece or even inspire a fiction piece. What's going on around you and how can you incorporate that into your writing? Also, reading. So myself, when I consider what I want to read as a writer, I think about reading things that I enjoy reading to inspire my writing. And I also think about things that are a little challenging for me to understand when it comes to reading. So I'm doing research and trying to grasp the material, which again can contribute to my writing. Also, your audience. So to be a successful writer, I would say you really have to think about who your audience is and what message you want to share with them. And that'll help guide the direction that you take your writing, whether it's high level or low level. And again, just making sure it's something that your audience can understand. Thinking of your writing and how you write process-wise, I would say to contribute to a successful writing piece. If you're writing and you have the opportunity to step away from the piece, that can be helpful, because if you're so focused on the piece and you're continuing to write and you're thinking like, okay, I'll write this piece straight through and make it the end result, that might not be your strongest piece, because oftentimes you could write something and start your initial draft, and when you step away from the writing and revisit it, you've probably developed new ideas that you hadn't thought of, as opposed to writing it and making it your final draft. So writing something, starting it, stepping away, potentially gathering new ideas, and revisiting your writing can contribute to successful writing. Also, gaining ideas as you write. So if you've cut out 10 minutes of your day to write, then as you're writing, you might start with writing about how your day went. But then as you're writing, you might gain additional inspiration to incorporate within the story. So for myself, I'm currently working on a piece that talks about family dynamics. And I initially thought to take my next chapter in a direction where the father explains to his son what happened during the son's childhood. But as I was writing, I gained inspiration to change the plot a bit. So during your writing process, you gain inspiration to go in a different path, which could be beneficial. Also, thinking about who your audience is when you're reading and how they'll understand it. So for myself, when I want to put myself in my audience's shoes, I'll read my writing aloud so I can hear my writing. And aside from reading it aloud just by looking at it, I'll also read it aloud while I'm looking in the mirror. Again, just to put myself in my audience's shoes, to hear my writing, and to make sure that it flows in the way that I anticipate it. Also, thinking about drafts. So as a writer, I like to start my first draft, and then I'll let my first draft sit for a few days and maybe work on another piece of writing, and then go back to that initial draft that I'd started. And for myself, it helps me to remove myself from my writing and revisit it a few days down the line. Again, going back to the point of new ideas coming up over time. And multiple drafts also work for my writing, because it gives me the opportunity to write from different perspectives. I might have started one way and then I think I want to change some things up. So my next draft could be a completely different draft, or my next draft could be minor edits to the first draft. And when I'm writing in my writing workshop environment where my peers and I give each other feedback, I appreciate changing my drafts based on what they say, because again, they're readers and they're looking at my draft from the perspective of someone who's removed from the story, but I'm involved more in the story as the author and the writer. So that workshop opportunity gives me the opportunity to think about how can I restructure my next draft. And one thing that happens for some writers is procrastination. So if you're working on a personal piece and you might not have a deadline, you're like, okay, I'll give myself time to write in this time frame. And then sometimes you might procrastinate and not get back to that piece for some time. And it's okay to procrastinate. That's a part of the process where you might not have a lot of creative juices flowing, and you don't know which direction you want to take your piece next. But as long as you recover from that procrastination and work out a plan to get back on track. So those are my tips for how to be a successful writer, and I'll reiterate them. So the first tip is to plan out time to write on a daily basis. Use a notepad or your phone's notes to jot down ideas that may come to you throughout the day. Think about what's happening within the world and in your environment and how that can inspire or contribute to your writing. Read the types of material that you enjoy reading so that you can take ideas from that to contribute to your writing. And also read the type of material that you find challenging, and that can be a way for you to imitate that material to contribute to your writing. Think about your audience and how you're sharing information with them and the clarity of your information. Think about stepping away from your writing after a while and revisit it. Continue writing and gain inspiration as you write. Read your writing aloud to yourself or in the mirror to hear your writing and understand your writing from a different perspective, and to also understand your writing from an audience or listener's perspective. Multiple drafts of your writing is totally fine, and again, you can work off of one draft and make it a continuation, or you might begin a draft and then your second draft might be a completely different product or a new piece of writing. And lastly, procrastination is okay. It's a part of the process. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.